We have more sunspots appearing in Earth view from the new solar cycle, and a coronal hole rotates into the Earth strike zone, and it's going to bring us some more fast wind. What do these things mean for you? Those stories and more in the news this week. This space weather forecast is sponsored in part by Millersville University. Come get certified in broadcast space weather. Visit millersville.edu/SWEN. Our sun continues to show signs of life this week. As we switch to our front side sun, you can see multiple bright regions. Now, one of these is actually a sunspot from the new solar cycle. This was region 2755, and no sooner than we got this sunspot than yet another emerged on the Earth-facing disk. On January 8th, this is region 2756, and it's a new cycle sunspot. And it began to make us think, well, maybe these new cycle sunspots are the norm. Now, since then, that region has rotated to the sun's backside, and solar flux is beginning to drop a little bit, but we're still well into the marginal range for radio propagation. Now, on top of that, we also have a small coronal hole that's going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone here over the next couple days, and it could give us some aurora down to about high latitudes. Remember, these storms are pretty weak right now because we're still pretty much in solar minimum. As we switch to our far side sun, you can see that equatorial bright region, that's an old cycle bright region. It's not even a sunspot, and that has already rotated into Earth view, but beyond that, you really don't see all that much going on in stereo's view because stereo's looking at the sun from the side. So it looks like after this fast wind hits us and we have this small solar storm, we're going to get a reprieve easily over the next week. And now for your Leo Geo orbit outlook. Switching to our low energy particle environment, these are the particles that cause surface charging on the outside of spacecraft, including charging up the solar arrays that then can cause discharges and electrical short circuits. You can see we were in pretty good shape until about the 9th when that weak solar storm hit us, and then we started seeing particle injections right around on the dawn side, and they started to kind of circulate in and around the geo orbits. Now, these particle injections keep occurring and they're continuing to build up. We did have a flushing of these particles right around the 10th, but as you can see, they're continuing to build up again. So you satellite operators in and around GEO and any space traffic in and around the GEO orbits, you are going to be worrying about satellite surface charging here over the next couple days. And when that fast solar wind hits, that will give us yet more injection of these low energy particles, so surface charging is going to continue to be an issue. Switching to our moon, we are now pulling out of a full moon on our way to a third quarter, and by the 18th, the moon will still be about 45% illuminated. So you night sky watchers, if you want to catch those dim objects in the sky, you're going to need to check your local rise and set times. Switching to your solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are anticipating the fast wind from that coronal hole that's going to be rotating in through the Earth strike zone. At high latitudes, NOAA is expecting unsettled to active conditions with up to about a 30% chance of a major storm. So this does mean you aurora photographers at high latitudes, you do have a decent chance to catch aurora over the next few days and through the midweek until things begin to settle down as we approach the weekend. Now at mid-latitudes, NOAA is expecting unsettled conditions with up to about a 20% chance of active conditions, but likely this is going to be very fleeting. So your aurora photographers at mid-latitudes, only if you are very diligent and you pay real close attention do you even have a chance of catching the sporadic aurora that we expect. Most likely you're not going to see much, if anything at all. Switching to our solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, although we do have a few bright regions on the Earth-facing disk, the only sunspot we had was region 2756, and it is now rotated to the sun's far side. So we do have a spotless sun once again, and this is good news for you GPS users. You have no risk for radio blackouts right now. In fact, everything is in the green for big solar flares, and it will continue like that on Earth's day side. Unfortunately, this also means that the solar flux is beginning to tank. You can see we're going from the mid-70s down into the low 70s for solar flux. This means radio propagation is getting a little bit worse. It doesn't look like we're going to drop below the marginal range for radio propagation. We're probably going to stay in the low 70s and not go into the 60s. Unfortunately, when we look at the stereo's view, which is looking at the sun from the side, it does look like we aren't getting any more sunspots that are going to be rotating into Earth view anytime soon. So these conditions conditions are going to continue. Now, also because we are still at solar minimum, the cosmic ray flux is a bit more intense than it normally would be. So you frequent flyers, and this does include you aircrew who fly over 800 hours annually and fly at high altitudes and high latitudes, you are in the marginal range for radiation dose, and this does include prenatal passengers. So please take this into consideration in your flight plans. So the sun keeps us on pins and needles this week. We have yet another news cycle sunspot that has emerged in Earth view, and even though that region is now rotated to the sun's backside, we still have solar flux that is boosted into the marginal range for radio propagation, and this should make amateur radio operators and emergency responders very happy. Now on top of that, we have a small coronal hole that's rotating into the Earth strike zone, and it could be bringing us some fast solar wind that could give us aurora down to high latitudes. So your aurora photographers, especially at high latitudes, keep your batteries charged because you should get a decent show. Now, aurora photographers at mid-latitudes, well, it's going to be a fleeting show and you might have to sit this one out. And the other people who might not be super happy about this are satellite operators. You guys, if you have satellites at the geo orbits in and around there, you could be dealing with some surface charging issues easily over the next week, possibly even internal charging issues, but definitely the surface charging is something you're going to have to watch out for, at least over the next few days and maybe a little bit longer. Now, the only people who are really happy this week are GPS users, because these weak solar storms that hit us, they actually stabilize that upper atmosphere, and that should make GPS reception, even on Earth's night side and at low latitudes, really trustworthy. I'm Tamitha Scove. Thank you for watching.